Council is locked in a series of closed-door meetings this weekend ahead of an expected announcement tomorrow on the remainder of the 2016 academic year. Students are also expected to meet. Now, Wits has been shut down for 3 weeks now amid ongoing fees must fall protests. Well, Wits was turned into a battlefield earlier this week with running battles between police and students. The university cancelled Friday's General Assembly after it failed to reach consensus with students. It also cited security fears. Wits management wants to resume the academic program to ensure the year is saved. A group of fees must fall students is set on the shutdown until it gets a commitment regarding fees. Meanwhile, the University of Cape Town has postponed the resumption of classes from Monday to Tuesday, this to allow more time for negotiations with key stakeholders. Well, the Higher Education Parents Dialogue, supported by the South African Council of Churches, have made an urgent call for the current standoff between university management, students and government to be classified as a national emergency. Now, the two organizations are currently working to mobilize and convene national intervention sessions with student leadership structures, the SRC and non-SRC, parents, the government, the university management. And for more on the mediation, we're now joined live from our Pretoria studio by Bishop Malusi Mpumlwana, the General Secretary of the South African Council of Churches. A very good evening to you, Bishop. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, based on preliminary talks,
thank you for having me.
Your national engagement tour to universities around the country making any difference?
Well, it is actually, ultimately we have to say that the whole matter lies with government. It's not really an issue of university management and students. The standoff is about an education system in the country. And our latest effort now is actually to persuade the government to consider that this is indeed a national crisis. We have written to the president to request a couple of things from him. One, we are asking the government to move from what is perceived to be a view that says this is a law and order matter. We don't think it's a law and order matter. We think it is a matter that needs political and governmental intervention. And so we are asking the government to take a different mode. And to that end, we think the president should appoint an interministerial committee, which includes the Minister of Finance, so that such a interministerial committee can then receive a multi-stakeholder delegation to hammer out the variety of possible things. I believe that students would probably be negotiable around things like a reasonable timeline. I think what the problem is that we have had, I mean, this is what they say, that the 2007 Pulukwane resolution of the ANC promised that there would be progress on free education by 2013. Okay. And then in 2014, the posters for election were proposing free education as a slogan for voter attraction. Now, nothing has happened as far as they are concerned up to now. And so it is a matter of saying the government's negotiation ought to be with a multi-stakeholder group that will then begin to address things so that the brand is not borne by university management, who are really just in between. And that the students are not prepared to let up because they believe that if they let up, nothing will happen again as it has happened before. So our view is we should take the conversation to where it is so that the bottom line that the government can declare is clearly defined in a multi-stakeholder meeting that everyone can understand. Otherwise, we're going to have this standoff. We have been advised by the Vice Chancellors that this is the last week. If nothing comes back to normalcy by the end of this week, that's coming next week, the year is lost. And what that means is that we lose the space for first year for next year, but it also means we lose graduates for next year that will then go into industry. And thirdly, we then have in the next year another batch of students coming out of matric who will have nowhere to go, and you've got two sort of graduate groups from high school that need to go to university. Apart from that, all the money that's been invested by parents, by government, by bursaries will have been lost for 2016. This is unaffordable. You can imagine the social impact and the economic impact of all of this. So
Indeed.
we do need to consider it as a national crisis, and all hands on deck, and all of us, let's try and find a solution. Don't let it be a university standoff.
Indeed, Bishop. Now, having said that, you have also called for the Fees Must Fall protest to be declared as a national crisis and emergency. So what do you hope this pronouncement will achieve?
Say that again, please.
What do you hope that the pronouncement that you actually call for the Fees Must Fall protest to be declared as a national crisis? So what do you hope this pronouncement will achieve?
Well, I mean, the technical term national emergency may mean something different at government level. But what I'm talking about is an attitude. That's why I'm saying it's a national crisis mode. In other words, deal with it as a national crisis, even if it are not so declared in, if you like, in statutory terms. But I'm saying that let's deal with it not as an issue of the Minister of Higher Education and universities and the security forces. No. Let's say it is something that, look, this is a crisis. It is a crisis in terms of what's going to happen to our society if we lose this year and if we continue to have this conflict in our universities. Let's just deal with it together. We're all in this together, the parents, the churches. By the way, the churches have in our congregations the parents of all these children. And so we're worried about this. It has an impact on us. That's why the people are coming to us about this. So let's deal with it together. Parents, churches, other stakeholders, business, everyone, and students must have a voice in that environment so that there is no go-between in this matter.
Now take us through some of your efforts this weekend, as of course we are aware that we're heading to Sunday's major announcement whether the protest will stop. We had our conversations which were led at Wits, for example, by, in every university there are different players in this matter. The churches are simply supporting what's happening in the different universities. We're in Cape Town, we're at HEParD, we're at NMU, we are everywhere as churches supporting the players in those environments. Now, what's happened at Wits is a collapse of the discussions between that was being brokered between the students and management over some of the detail. The same thing is happening in other universities as well, as you are aware. And likewise, in Pretoria, they're busy handling the same things. We cannot predict what the final decisions will be because those meetings are ongoing between today, tomorrow, and Monday. Now, the fact that, Bishop, the General Assembly was postponed at the last minute yesterday, isn't that worrying? Aren't you worried at all? That,
of course, it is worrisome. When there are conversations about solutions to things, every minute counts. You never know what's going to happen in the next hour, and you handle it as it comes.
Now, Fees Must Fall is not the only problems engulfed in tertiary institutions. Now, one of the major concerns is sexual harassment. Take us through that.
Oh yes, that's a big one. In fact, the sexual harassment is actually a chronic problem in our society, and that is much larger than any of the problems we have, because it also it comes out of the patriarchal mindset of South Africans. And it is also because sexual harassment tends to be undermined and regarded as a non-issue, if not a domestic issue. That again comes out of the patriarchal attitude of even the power structures of our society. And so that's something that we continue to have worries about every time there is any kind of intensity of emotions that is likely to happen. And so the fact that the women that are so violated also depend on the goodwill of the police who come to campuses under a different charge is not helpful.
Now, Bishop, there are two issues at play here. Now, the students are calling for fees to fall now, yet the general narrative by the society at large is that, yes, fees definitely should fall, but not now. I mean, the government should give the students a commitment that fees will fall, but not now. So whose narrative are you supporting?
This is why we should not have this conversation through the media, but we should sit down between government and a multi-stakeholder delegation. That's exactly what we're calling for, so that we don't have these conversations between you and I on behalf of everyone else.
All right. Now, as you continue with your national tour, what other issues come out from the students?
Well, the violence from the students complain about the violence of the police, and that the presence of the police on campus is creates the greater tension. The management, on the other hand, worry about what they consider to be security problems on campus. And so again, it's a question of this problem, which does not belong to these two parties by themselves, becomes an issue of the two parties. That's why we're saying let's have a multi-stakeholder conversation with government so that these things don't fall away.
So as a stakeholder, Bishop, do you think the students' demands are quite unreasonable?
As a parent and somebody who has over one's life struggled for democracy and the best that there is for society, I can say that the best thing that a country can do to invest in its future is invest in its children. That is something that is, I think, a no-brainer. The question is, how does that happen? What is the best way to achieve it? And the second thing, that the students are talking about decolonization of curricula. I say that's a very good thing to talk about, but I would say it doesn't start at university, it starts at preschool, where you actually begin to lose the idiom in the socialization that matters in making for a non-colonized environment at primary school, high school, and all the way up to university. So these are very big issues, very important issues. I'm actually grateful that the issues have been raised, and I think that the nation should take advantage of the situation and make sure that it deals with them once and for all thoroughly.
But the issue, Bishop, here is still that the students' demands are deemed as unreasonable, and there is a fear that students will lose society's support because what they are demanding is actually unreasonable. What's your take on that?
Let me just communicate this again. Let me be clear to you. This nation is governed through a government system. And when there's something that is a fall apart in society, government takes responsibility. That's why we're saying, Mr. Government, this is a national crisis. We want the government to take responsibility and pull everything together. That's the only way this is going to be resolved. It's not about who has got one attitude or the other, not about one opinion or the other of what is going on. Let's take this matter up. Let's assist government together as parents and churches and all other players in South Africa to make sure that this matter is resolved. But I think it does need government intervention at a much broader level than has been up to now.
Now, Bishop, briefly, you're also calling for parents to get involved in the discussion by contacting either the SACC through their local church parishes or directly. So is the SACC concerned about the lack of voices from the parents?
Well, the parents that are talking to us, I'm not talking about the organized parents in the structure, I'm talking about parents who call on us as individuals, are sitting in fear. Some of them fear for their investment they have already made. Others fear for the lives of their children when they see all the violence. Others fear for what's going to happen if the whole system shuts down. So there's a great amount of fear. And we're saying, because we have a pastoral responsibility, we want to say that those parents who have concerns must present themselves to their churches so that we can be able to see where the concerns are, how we can be able to assist.
Bishop Mpumlwana, it's been great chatting to you. Appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
All right, that was Bishop Malusi Mpumlwana, General Secretary of the South African Council of Churches, speaking to us live from our Pretoria studios.